We live at Applewood in South Amherst. Applewood is a retirement community that was built some 20 years ago, 21 years ago, by people in the community. Steve Puffer, who I don't have to describe, joined us, about 5 years ago?
At least.
Something like that. Although he always used to say that he would never die in South Amherst. He had an attitude towards South Amherst that those were farmers who didn't dirty their hands, and North Amherst was where you found people, workmen like himself.
And actually he didn't. He was in the Fisher home, so he did not die in South Amherst. I wanted to talk a little bit about his earlier experience in town meeting. He was the longest serving member of town meeting, which I'm sure many people know, including his grandsons. But he had a particular role. When the discussion went on forever and ever and nothing new was being said, the moderator would turn to Steve and say, call on him next. And Steve would always say, I moved the previous question. And it was a great role. People laughed and they were pleased because they knew that when they called on Steve, he was going to fulfill that role of kind of bringing things to a final conclusion. And we appreciated his service over so many years.
What I wanted to share is that about 20 years ago, I used to work for the Hitchcock Center for the Environment here in Amherst, and we ran programs taking kids out into the woods and out into the fields, and we had a program on changing landscapes. And someone told me that Mr. Puffer might be willing to lend us a bus, and so I went to talk with him, and he did lend us a bus, which was incredibly generous, but he also came and talked with the kids and told us all about working on the pipelines for the Quabbin Reservoir. And he just told fantastic stories of the work, describing being in these huge pipes and, mile after mile, and the towns being sunk, and it was a perfect program addition and a generous thing to do. And so I just happened to be thinking about that, and someone asked me to share it. So I am. We really enjoyed his stories, and we also appreciated his generosity with the bus. Thanks.
I moved to Amherst in 1965 from downtown Washington, D.C., and experienced a new town life. Over the years after that, I met Steve Puffer casually in various groups and at various events, but it was not until Steve and I began to be regulars at a small restaurant down the hill from Amherst College on Route 9 called Kelly's. It was called Reddy's initially and then Kelly's, that Steve and I got to really know each other. One day, he found out that I had grown up in Allentown, Pennsylvania. Allentown, Pennsylvania was the home of the Mack Truck manufacturing facility, and I knew a lot about that facility. I used to ride my bicycle around it. I played on a baseball field adjacent to it. I visited the facility during their open houses. His eyes would light up when he would hear me talk about this truck place. And then we branched out from there, and he found out that my great-grandfather and his 4 sons, one of whom was my grandfather, had a carriage factory in Allentown. And they were one of the earliest to set up an assembly line where the father and each of the brothers was a specialist. And they would make carriages for the mayor, for the funeral parlors, as well as Conestoga wagons. And they carried that business on until the second decade of the 20th century. And Steve came into the picture about that time in his own life as a person of interest in things like that. So he was fascinated about the assembly line that my grandfather and his father had set up.
I was just very proud to know Mr. Puffer, and had the great honor of helping to plan his 90th birthday party. So absolutely a fun person. Just seeing around, as Cinda said, just being around him and just singing with the ladies of Applewood in the Cadillac. It's really nice. Surely will be missed. And Amherst, we're just very grateful to have him here for the time that he was here. Thank you.
I'm from Colombia. I have a lot of experience with Steve. I work with him. I work for Barbara too. And I came from Colombia, and I don't know nothing about English, and he teach me English. I live in Pofton Village. And after that, now I have a house in Hadley. I bought a house, and he helps me too much. He brings me to take classes in Mercy Hospital because I am dentist in my country, and he brings me many times to take the classes, English classes in the Mercy Hospital, and I went with him to Puffers. I walk in this place many times with him, and I went to Quabbin Reservoir with him. Oh my goodness, I remember him a lot, and I miss him too much. Thank you.